In this video, we will be going over MakerBot Desktop and print preparation. Let's go ahead and open it up. Whenever you open up MakerBot Desktop, you should be transported to the Prepare tab. If you are not transported to the Prepare tab and you find yourself in the Explore tab, you'll notice that there are Thingiverse featured files that you can browse here. All you need to do is select the Prepare tab at the top, and it'll bring you back into the workspace. The next thing you're going to want to do is select Device. Make sure that you have the correct type of device selected for whatever print that you're doing. Larger files will go on the Z18, which has a larger build volume. But typically we'll use the Replicator 5th generation for most of our prints. Next, we'll go ahead and add a file. There are two ways to do this. You can either select File and then Add, or you can choose from the gray menu right here. Let's bring in Debt Monster V2. Now that we have this into our build space, let's go ahead and go over navigation. While you have the View tab selected, left-click anywhere in the viewport and drag will allow you to orbit. Right-click anywhere in the viewport on any of the tools on the selection tools on the left-hand side will also orbit. Middle mouse button will pan. Scroll wheel up is zoom in. Scroll wheel down is zoom out. If at any point in time you find yourself lost in space, you can select the home button at the top left to reset the view. The plus and the minus are also zooms. Let's also look at the menus on the left-hand side. We have our view, which you can fix of 3, top, side, front. You can also reset, which is the same as the home button. You can go into the position or move tool. Make sure that you have the object selected. And if you left click at any point in time while you have an object selected, it will move in the X and Y axis. In order to move in the Z axis, hold Shift and left click and drag. Control Z to undo. Open up the rotation menu. There are options here for altering rotation. And you can choose to lay flat. This is pretty important for most objects. Reset rotation. It's off of the build plate, so we'll go ahead and hit lay flat. Scale. If we ever need to scale anything, we can just click and drag. Scales from the center. Control Z undo. Typically, you want to make sure that you have uniform scaling on. But if you don't, let's say that we would like to increase the thickness or the height of this, we can turn off uniform scaling and increase our Z to whatever number we like. And you'll see that now the debt monster is a lot taller. That's not what we want though, so let's undo that, Control Z. The next thing I want to go over is object orientation and build plate arrangement. So let's add another file. We'll bring in Thorpig. Whenever you add another file, it will bring it directly into the center. Most of the time, as long as the file has been created at the origin of its original software. If not, then it will end up somewhere out in space. And typically when that happens, whenever we have a file that we want to bring in to the center, we can Control A to select all, and then Control L to auto layout. So now we have both of our files laid on the build plate with our auto layout feature. The next thing that we want to go over is the actual orientation of these models. Now, this is going to be the best way to print them, but I want to look at if we rotate these in specific ways. Let's hit Control A, Control L again to see how MakerBot would orient these. So with their current rotation or orientation, MakerBot would put them directly in the center of the build plate, one in front of the other. Now, this isn't going to be the best way to print these. We always want to try and find a flat surface to print on. So we will reset the rotation for both of these. We will choose lay flat on both of them as well. You can also simply select Control A, Control L again to get a good layout. Let's go over the print settings. You can choose print settings from the settings tab in the gray bar next to where we added the file. Initially, whenever you open this up, it'll give you the quick menu, which just has standard quality. It has a raft selected, a decent infill amount, and 0.2 millimeter layer height. However, this does not accommodate for some of the more intricate details of 3D printing. So let's open up the custom menu and go to standard. We have device settings. Most of this is not that important, but we do edit some of these sometimes, especially the travel speed if we need to. We have extrusion speeds, which gets into advanced layers of troubleshooting. Typically, we won't mess with any of those. The infill is something that we want to alter in almost every print. 10% is a good middle range value. Sometimes it can be on the high end, sometimes it can be on the low end. Our infill pattern is almost always hexagonal, as we've found that linear sometimes gives us issues, and spider webbing happens on the inside of prints. In the model properties section, that's where we'll find the layer height. Standard for 0.2 millimeters is standard, 0.1 millimeters is high resolution, and 0.3 or 0.4 millimeters is low resolution. Number of shells is 2. This may also vary depending on the kind of file and the strength that you want to use. We have our raft. Make sure that our raft is always selected for MakerBot Desktop. We also have our supports. For these prints, we do not need supports, so let's go ahead and deselect that. And we always want to make sure we have the correct type of extruder. There are 2 types of extruders, the Smart Extruder and the Smart Extruder Plus. We are almost all the way through all of our Smart Extruders, so eventually the Smart Extruder option may not be an option for us. So we'll select Smart Extruder Plus, and we will hit OK. The next thing we want to do is hit Preview and get a look at what happens when MakerBot Desktop chooses to slice these files. Great. So the first thing we want to look at is the material use. It's about 28.87 grams. This is a ballpark number. Typically, we'll round up if the number after the decimal is 5 or greater, and we'll round down if it's 5 or if it's 4 or less. The print time is about 2 hours and 46 minutes. Both of these are estimates, but they are very close. We can also see in this left-hand side of this print preview, we have our layers. So there are 36 layers total, and we can scrub this slider on the left-hand side to see each layer individually. Let's zoom in. Middle mouse button up, middle mouse button click to pan, and right-click for orbit. So we can view all of the different sides just to make sure that our surface is looking good and that our print layers are looking good as well. So the first few layers are the raft. The next few layers are the floor. And then you'll see the hexagon pattern infill that we've created. And then it actually begins to build the shapes. So what we want to do next is export. And we can take this to the desktop. We will call this the date. Today's date is 26th of February 2018. So we'll start with 180226 _ username. underscore file name. We'll go ahead and save that. Usually you'll get this file name is too long. Just hit OK or save, and it'll give you a quick synopsis of what has happened, resolution, rafts, and supports. We'll hit OK. That gives us a .makerbot file, which is then ready to be printed. If we want to save this file as a .thing file, we click File, Save As, and then we can choose the same naming convention. Year first, then month, then day. Username, file name, .thing. And there we have it. We have both of these files, both of these print objects in one print file, ready to be printed on MakerBot printers.